Hello, good evening. Welcome to episode 59 of the Thrill Podcast, the greatest podcast in the world. Delighted to say I'm not joined tonight by Tom Goff. We've got a very special guest. We've got freelance sports journalist and editor Laura Hartley. Laura, how are you doing?
Hi, how are you? I'm good, thanks.
I've just told you about the day I've had. I don't think I'm ready to confess that live on YouTube quite yet. So we'll see how it goes later on tonight. But then that story may come out in the washing. Yeah, but apart from that, a really good Easter weekend. Loads of football. Obviously more twists and turns in the Championship. We've got to start, obviously, with yesterday released on Monday. And we find out that Leeds and Burnley are actually now promoted.
Yeah, I think it's deserved, isn't it, really? I think across the entire season, they've been the consistently good teams. I think overall, the quality of the league hasn't been amazing this season. So I think to be as consistent as they have, especially with as few goals that they've conceded, is a real achievement. And I think they're the deserved ones that have gone up as well. Every time that we Coventry have faced them, it's they are the two top teams that deserve to go up.
You put your finger on there about the quality of the league. What's made you kind of say that in terms of, maybe contrast to last season? What do you think's been missing? Is it consistency? Is it just the fact that maybe the teams out with the ones that are kind of yo-yoing up and down, or maybe they're going all kind of in for the kind of same players? What is it you kind of put that down to?
I think it's both. Definitely a mix of both there. I just don't think there's real consistency at all. I was having a conversation earlier, and we went on a run of I think it was 11 in 13 games we won in the end, which for the Championship is absolutely remarkable. Swansea have now won 5, which is the most that they've won on the bounce in. I can't remember the stat that it was, but it was a long time, and I just think the consistency is awful this year. Our away form has been terrible, but actually that's been like it for a couple of years, so that's actually been maybe consistent. And I think the yo-yoing teams, that's a whole different conversation as it is, I think, with the teams that go up and down from the Prem. The gap is just way too big. And I think it's something that really needs to be addressed in the future, which is probably too big a conversation for the time that we've got tonight. But yeah, I think it's a mix of things it's the greatest league in the world at the same time as being one of the most stressful and inconsistent probably leagues in the world as well.
Well, it's great if you're a neutral like me. You can just kind of kick back every Saturday, Tuesday, Wednesday, whatever it be, and just watch it unfold. But I imagine, if you're a fan of these sides, it's nail-biting, especially this season, because everyone's kind of had stuff to play for in the kind of last 3 games, which has been why it's maybe, branded the most entertaining division in the whole of Europe. Just on the two sides, because I've kind of pinpointed some key points here. We've got to start with Burnley, really. They broke all kind of records this season. You talk about clean sheets, 15 of those... 29 of those, should I say, 15 goals conceded. That 31 game unbeaten run that they're on at the minute. If anyone was worthy of going up, surely those stats alone take you to the Premier League.
Yeah, definitely. And I think it is all about that. I think maybe the one thing that they haven't got hammered on as much, and actually probably something that they've been criticised for is the lack of goals that they've scored. They're in a position where they are for a reason, but their defence has carried them massively through this season. They have been brandished boring by so many people because they just don't attack as much as what the other teams do. If you look at the Leeds goal difference compared to Burnley goal difference, that's where it's at. And obviously Leeds do play the more attacking football. But it just shows that they're two completely different sides in terms of that, where the goal differences are. But they've both managed to get promoted. So, that both tactical decisions work.
Yeah, you speak about managerial decisions there. Parker and Farker have obviously both got, nous of getting teams out of division. Obviously, Farker's done it before with Norwich. This is now Parker's third promotion with, obviously, Bournemouth and Fulham as well. Is that important? And where does that kind of rank in terms of, what you need to get out of this division?
Yeah, I think that experience is definitely a must for anybody that's going to take a side up from the Championship to the Premier League. It's probably one of the biggest gaps I think, in terms of leagues, definitely that I'm aware of. And you need the experience. And obviously, I think Parker might be a little bit more successful. I would like to think so, just because he has done it twice. This is going to be the third time that he's done it. You would think that practice would make almost perfect. Nobody's perfect, but you would think that would at least give him a level up against Leeds and whoever else does go up. But also, I think Leeds have got the brutality and the attacking football that's needed. This year, I think they were restrained in terms of, especially in the January window, of who they could sign. This year, in the summer, I don't think they'll have those restraints. So it'll be interesting to see what they do with the transfer window, to see how they can bolster their team to survive in the Prem. Because we all know it's always the same three that go up, that just come straight back down. And that's a wider issue, and it's massive. But I would think that Parker definitely has maybe a little one up against Farke here.
I was looking at the kind of Premier League stats, should I say, managerial stats before coming on. Someone about a game, I think 49 for Farke, 52 for Parker, so it's not too dissimilar. Those names seem to rhyme for some reason. I don't know why. Every time I say it, Parker's won 9, Farke's won 6. They've drawn 8 for Farke, 13 for Parker, 30 losses for Parker, and 35 losses for Farke. It's kind of similar kind of, back catalogue, really, in terms of Premier League. You touch on there about Daniel Farke not being able to spend in January. I think when he came up with Norwich, he spent maybe close to £9 million, I think, net spend. He may have somewhere upwards of 60 million to spend with Leeds. That could be the difference this time with Farke in terms of consolidating.
Yeah, definitely. And that just shows, again, how far we've come, how much, again, he can spend in this window. But then the gap has got even bigger. And I know I keep banging on about the gap, but it is that big, and it is that important when you're going up to the Prem. And I think with teams, whether it's us that would go up, whether it's Bristol City that would go up, teams that haven't been in the Prem for such a long time, I think it would be a shock to the system. Whereas Farke and Parker, they've got that experience. They know exactly what it's like. They know what to expect. But I think that could be the difference in the survival for Leeds this season. And again, the same with Burnley.
Just in terms of the title then, because we know they're both going up. Burnley have got QPR away, Millwall at home. Leeds have got Bristol at home and Argyle away. Would you say Burnley have got it slightly easier in terms of the two teams that Leeds may be playing have got something to play for and could be playing right to the final day?
Yeah, I think only Millwall really have got something to play for. They're on some very strange late playoff push, kind of come up from nowhere. Whereas Bristol City they're normally kind of mid-table. They sometimes creep into the playoffs, but then they'll drop back down again. And I think the usual suspects of the playoffs kind of don't normally expect to see Bristol City there. So yeah, they'll have something to fight for. But then look at what happened at the weekend with Luton. I know Leeds have been promoted, but they will still be wanting to get that Champions title. So I don't think they're going to make it easy at all. And Plymouth, look what happened on Easter Monday against us. It was they're absolutely fighting for their lives, and it's so tight that they could do it with a win. And I think only a couple of times, maybe about 3-4 weeks ago, Leeds just started to falter a little bit, and you could see maybe that's where the cracks were showing, and that it is possible to get through with Leeds. But I don't know. I think they'll be going for Champions, so for Coventry's sake, I'm hoping that they absolutely hammer Bristol City. But yeah, I think Burnley have definitely got the easier run in there for the last couple of games.
Yeah, as you say, we'll come on to Millwall in a moment, but we just can't pinpoint who's going to get these kind of last two spots. Okay, let's move on to your side then. Have a little bit of a deeper talk about Coventry, because you are a self-confessed Coventry City fan. We seem to be, we follow you quite regularly on social media, and your posts are obviously all Coventry-based, majority of anyway. Take us back to the start of the season, then obviously, in fact, you mentioned to me yesterday was the 1 year anniversary of that. Cup semi-final against Manchester United. Mark Robins, at that point was untouchable. It felt, everything he was doing was turning to gold. We get to kind of early November, and he's sacked.
Yeah, I mean, the last couple of years have been crazy as a Coventry City fan. We reached playoff final the year before last. That was obviously absolutely heartbreaking. We came so close. And it really felt like even before that, I think it must have been just the years leading up to it felt like we were going to get something good with Robins in the second time round. But I don't think we realised how good it was going to get. So we obviously went from playoff final and we thought, okay, let's just rebuild, let's go again. And our seasons tend to go, the first half of the season is absolutely wretched. And you think, oh, bloody hell, here we go again. And you just think, okay, mid-table, we'll maybe fight for relegation, and you think, and then the second half of the season comes around, you're thinking, hello, finally, we've turned up. It would have been nice to see that in the first half of the season as well. And then last year, we obviously had the added bonus of the FA Cup and the run that we went on. And genuinely, the quarterfinal against Wolves was the best game of my life. It was euphoric, joyful, emotional. It was everything that you absolutely feel as a football fan. And then reaching Wembley, that was incredible. And we were still kind of, we were only a few places off the playoffs even then, but we were just absolutely knackered. We just couldn't carry on to the point of getting into the playoffs, but you just felt so much joy. That was only the second time that we got to the semi-final of the FA Cup, the only other time being 87 when we won it. So there was so much history in there, and it put us on that trajectory, and you kind of think, okay, let's go again. Like, we'll do it. Like, we'll finally get there. And then the season starts this season, and it just felt like a disaster. And it just almost felt like we were falling apart, which our confidence was really low on the pitch. And it was really hard to go and watch Cov at that time, because we had been through so many amazing times and memories and years with Robins, and something just felt off, and I just couldn't really put my finger on what had happened and what had disconnected, and why the confidence was so low of the players, why they just, like, compared to then and now, we've only had 2 players that have been added to the squad. So it's the exact same squad, but they do not look like it. Like, we're really disappointed with the result yesterday, but they're the same bunch of players, and they're still going to fight for the badge. And they didn't exactly show it yesterday, but yeah, when we had Derby at home and it was Robin's last game, Derby hadn't won away from home. And it's a very Coventry thing to do, to just completely break those records for all the wrong reasons. It's happened before. And I just thought, okay, right, well, we go again. And then he was sacked in the morning, and it did not feel real at all. And you just think, what's going to happen now? And we were going into uncharted territory, because it had been 7.5 years, nearly 8 years with Mark Robins in charge. So we didn't even know what it felt like. We can't remember what it felt like to have a new manager. And you see so many revolving doors now in football, and there's no stability in football. It doesn't feel like, it feels very rare to come by. So we just thought, right, okay, we've got obviously like Premier League packages that we've got for if we go up in the next 5 years. There's season tickets available, and all this that the marketing the club have done to give us so much hope. And it just felt like all of that was just disappearing again. I thought, I can't do this. And it was really strange. And when Lampard was on the shortlist for managers, obviously Van Nistelrooy as well was on the shortlist. And look at that. I'm glad we didn't actually end up getting him, because he you might be looking for another new club like in the summer. And you get excited by these big names. They've done so much in their careers, but as players, and the Lampard decision definitely, I think, divided the fan base. I was one of the ones that was very positive about the appointment because I thought I think like a lot of times in life, you go away, you learn lessons from your mistakes, and then you come back and you apply everything that you've learned to them. So I was positive for Lampard, and I thought he came back at the right time. We were 2 points, 2 places off relegation, whatever it was in November. And if you'd have said, would you take playoffs in April, 12 days or whatever it is before the season ends, I'd have snapped your hands off.
Do you think how hard was it for Lampard following Mark Robins? Because you say the fan base divided almost in terms of the appointment. A lot of love for Mark Robins, and rightly so, for the body of work that he's done over the 7-8 years that you cover there. But Frank Lampard's almost kind of, he's turned it round. You see, especially on that kind of, 10, 11 game run, whatever it may be, that the synergy, which I always feel is really important at a football club, between the supporters, the players, and the manager, it just seems just spot on at the minute at Coventry.
Yeah, I think Lampard came in, and while I think fans, they might still even be reserved, and, I think they're well within their rights to be. Every fan has their opinion. Football fans, I think, are notorious for having very strong opinions. So, some people still might not be fully on board despite what he's achieved. But I think what Lampard has done, he's done right. He's come in, he has completely respected everything, all the foundations and all the achievements that Robins had made, that he'd done, all of it in his spell at Cov. And I think that was the most important thing that he could have done, and he did do, and he was very vocal about that, both about him and his coaching staff that he brought in. So I don't think he could have done anything really differently, because he came in, he respected everything that Robins had done, but he was like, confidence is on the ground, so let's go, let's do it. And it definitely helps the stature of what he stood for as a player, his achievements as a player. We've got quite a lot of young players, so I imagine that, well, I know for a fact that quite a few of them were very hungry to learn from him. And he's completely turned it around. The confidence of the players, you can see that they're happy. The relationship and the connection between the fans and the players again, you can see that. And Lampard and the fans as well. And I genuinely hope he feels really at home in Coventry. I really hope he stays to the end of his contract. I think a lot of people are worried that he'll leave even before, whether he achieves with us, whether he doesn't achieve with us. But I hope he stays till the end of his contract and even extends it, because I'd love to see him achieve everything and the Prem and stay up, not just, take us to the Prem and then leave, because that's what quite a lot of people do. I'd love to stay in the Prem, and especially with Lampard, because I'd love for him to prove everybody else wrong as well. Because
I think it feels like almost it's about time that he found a kind of managerial home. If that makes sense. I know he'd done fairly well at Derby, and then he was obviously moved on with Chelsea and Everton, and kind of bobbed around. Things didn't really work out, but it seems a little bit different at Coventry. You mentioned obviously about players earlier on, and I wanted to touch on a couple. We saw Matt Grimes come in with Frank Lampard in January, and he's been a really good addition. But the one that steals the show is probably one that Matt Robins brought in is Jack Radoni. He's been absolutely sensational this season. A player that looks like can go on to another level as well. How impressed have you been with both those players this season?
Jack Radoni is probably my player of the season. There's no actually probably about it. He is my player of the season. He has been outstanding. When he dislocated his shoulder and he was out for a few games around the international break, you could really tell the difference with the squad. He's just phenomenal. Every blade of grass, every kind of space he will find. He will play hide and seek on that pitch. He will find a space. Like, he is absolutely fantastic. The work that he does, and he's openly said, he's worked with Lampard one-on-one on the training pitch at the training ground. And he's worked on, the crosses, the headers, getting in the box, popping up out of nowhere. And you can tell. And he's something that I don't think we've really had before, in that he is making that space. I think as well, we've also been quite worried and scared to shoot from outside the box. Whereas now, Josh Eccles, he's another homegrown talent. He's Cov lad. And he's out injured at the minute. But under Lampard, he's been, he's been taking those shots. He's been making the most of it. And I think so much they're learning from him. But yeah, Rudoni is my player of the season. Matt Grimes has just been, again, outstanding. There's actually a surprising amount of fans that are questioning kind of the effect that he's having on the team, which I'm really surprised at. I mean, I will not be the first to say that we do not have a solid defence. I don't know whether we have one of the weakest defences in the league. It's not brilliant. We don't necessarily have the depth with that either, especially if we've got injuries. And Grimes is so good at filling in and playing a really deep midfield role, almost as a centre-back, to then go right through to a centre mid and forward and getting into those spaces. And that is key for us. We haven't really had that in the midfield in terms of the fluidity, but so it flows so well. So they've been absolutely key for us, especially from January when Grimes signed.
Yeah, and it seems to be with Matt Grimes, he allows the others around him to kind of play the more advanced roles as well. So yeah, I think he does a lot of dirty dog work that goes unnoticed. In terms of the forward areas, let's mention Haji Wright, because he's kind of came back at the right time, if you pardon the pun. I think Frank Lampard was just desperate to get him back. He hadn't had a good look at him due to the injury he's had, but he's now back in, and he is a class act in the Championship. He's a heavy operator.
Yeah, he is. I think it's quite funny in that we were desperate for him to come back, and obviously when he did come back, he started scoring, he was assisting, he was really making an impact on the game. But he's quite infamous for being just offside, and that's not just in the horrendous semi-final that still haunts me last year, when his toe was arguably a smidgen offside. But every time it kind of, I think it was his first game back and he was playing so well. I think he's caught offside 3 times in 10 minutes. And I just thought, oh God, I forgot how much he was offside. And it's just those moments that you kind of go, oh, he's so good, but oh man, just get onside. Like, please just do not move until you know that you're onside. So that's a massive bugbear of mine. But he is brilliant, but again, he has his moments, and yesterday proved it. He plays international for the USA. He's a world-class footballer. But I think he does need to step it up and prove that, he has recently, before his injury, was in the USA team. So to miss shots like he did yesterday, I think he still needs to up it. And I know he's come back from injury, but he scored a hat-trick against Sunderland. They were in 4th. And I just think he's brilliant, but he needs the consistency. He really needs the consistency. Like, we were playing Plymouth yesterday, and that's no disrespect to them because they're fighting for their lives. But at the same time, he's got to be taking those shots and finishing them as well.
You mentioned obviously yesterday's game, and it's hard to kind of admit it, but Frank Lampard said, they need to be more dynamic, breaking a low block. They went at the level yesterday. They've got Luton at the weekend. It's going to be a similar kind of, task really, away at Kenilworth Road. That could be a similar kind of match really. How do you see that one sort of panning out, going into the final game against Borough at home, which could essentially be a cup final?
Oh my God. I genuinely most of the time have a feeling of how it's going to go. I can't call it. I really can't call it. It's either going to go one of 2 ways. It's either going to be, another Plymouth situation from yesterday, which I truly hope it's not, because we desperately need those points and we just can't keep on playing away. Our away form is terrible. I think we've only won 6 away games all season. which is it's dreadful. You just can't be doing that, and that's not a playoff team. However, there's also the flip side of it would be the most beautiful, poetic of football poetry if it was the day that, almost 2 years later, we sent Luton down by winning 2 years after they beat us in the playoff final. So in my head, I'm really hoping it's the football poetry option, because I can't go into the final day stressed like that. I don't really want to go into Saturday stressed, but here I am. Probably one of the most stressful times of being a Cov fan, other than waiting for that VAR moment last year. So yeah, I just can't call it.
So it's not even just your own kind of fan base that'll be having these feelings as the days and hours pass by. Bristol City fans will be feeling the same. We've spoke about Borough, Millwall. I mean, even Blackburn probably have a slim chance, but they need to kind of win both games and hope that, a miracle happens. But, in terms of if you sit here tonight, do you think you'll do it? Do you think you'll be in that top six come full time against Borough?
Yes.
Yes, she's nailed the colours to the mast. Love that. We'll call her back and we shall see in a couple of weeks' time. Okay, let's we'll just spend the last couple of minutes talking about the bottom, because it's been quite again another race. Not a race you probably want to be in, but exciting again for the neutral. Yeah. You mentioned the weekend there. We've talked about kind of Plymouth result, Luton as well winning, Hull winning, Derby winning. That it's really pulled Preston in as well. I think Preston are kind of going to be in trouble as well. So there's loads to play for down the bottom. Listening to some of the managers now, you want momentum. I think whether it's going up or trying to stay up, I think you want momentum. And the likes of Oxford and Preston, they probably need to watch their backs, don't they?
Yeah, massively. I mean, when I looked at the table yesterday, seeing Preston there was really surprising to me. Normally, they're our bogey team as well, and they're normally right up there. But to see them where they are, it's massive, and to be pulled in. But I think that actually just shows, again, how tight the Championship is this year. I think it's tighter than any year that it's been in, probably, dare I say, recent history. Genuinely can't remember the last time it was like this. If you were to ask me who's getting relegated, I genuinely couldn't call it. But like you say, you need the momentum. Hopefully Luton, we kill theirs, because I couldn't. So hopefully they've lost their momentum just midweek. Hopefully they've left it on the training ground. Cardiff is another one. Didn't really expect them to see them there, but I probably wouldn't be surprised if they did go down. I do find it quite mad that, I say there is a link to this. Obviously, Aaron Ramsey's now taken charge of Cardiff for the interim. Finding it mad that on the final day, him and Jack Wilshere will then go head to head, because now Jack Wilshere has taken interim charge of Norwich City, which is absolutely absurd. And just another string to the chaotic bow of the Championship. Like, there's genuinely no other league like it. It blows my mind. I think Aaron Ramsey's got a massive task on his hand. Whether he keeps them up, I have no idea. Derby went on a run. Whether they can keep that going, it like you say, it is completely all about momentum. And it's just so tight. I think there's maybe 6 teams that are in that relegation battle, maybe 7.
Yeah, well, I think if you go from, I'd probably say, 7th, 18th down to 24th are definitely in there. I think Stoke are probably, and Portsmouth are definitely kind of safe now. So, listen to Milan Muslic after the win against Coventry, and he kind of spoke about, trying to make sure that just by the last game of the season against Leeds, at home, that it is a cup final for them. That's what they're looking for. That's what they want to still be in it. During, in their hands during the last game. It could be an exciting one of those, with the cut to the old guy in the stand with the radio in his ear. It could be one of them days, couldn't it?
Yeah, definitely. And do you know what? There's absolutely no slight on Plymouth at all. I think they were so unlucky at the beginning of the season, the first half of the season, being dealt the Rooney hand, because I think if they'd have had this run of games and, you know, these coaches in charge this whole time, we wouldn't be here having this conversation. I think they probably would have been mid-table safe. So it is really sad, and I know from quite a few Cov fans yesterday saying that they were brilliant fans, and it is such a shame to see them, if they do go down, and I hope they don't. They're some of the most loyal fans in the country, considering how far they have to go and they sell out so regularly. But, you know, they've shown that they can do it. You know, they've shown that they can win against us, you know, a top 6 team who arguably sometimes don't play like a top 6 team, but well, that's a by the by. Liverpool, they managed to, yes, it wasn't Liverpool's strongest team. However, they did have some of their best players in that 11 and on the subs bench, and to knock Liverpool out, I think, was a remarkable feat. And I think Plymouth should be really proud of what they've done this season, regardless, because they've had many battles, I think, to face of the board and the decisions that they've made. But yeah, I hope that if they do go down, they just come straight back up, because I think they would boss League One if they did get relegated. But I don't want them to get relegated.
I think they've won the most League One titles out of anyone in England. Correct me if I'm wrong, someone in the comments will tell me. Just finally then, because, you know, it'd be remiss of me not to talk about a playoff final. You know, as it stands, you would play Sheffield United in the semi, and then I dare say you'd probably hope for Sunderland in the final. You've got a really decent record against Sunderland, is that right?
Yeah, we've got. It's scary to actually talk about it because I'm really nervous about it. Yeah, Sunderland, we've got a really good record. So, you know, ideally we would want them in the final. But then at the same time, Sheffield United also haven't got promotion from a playoff. So there's also that. So, yeah, maybe...
Is it important, like we spoke about there, though, in terms of mentality and momentum, it's better maybe to be a Bristol or a Coventry rather than a Sunderland or a Sheffield United are going to be hurting. Chris Wilder's got 2 games now, pretty much dead rubbers, because they're only going to be friendlies for him because they know they're going to finish third. So how does he it's about how does he motivate them now and pick them up, because they looked devastated at the full-time whistle last night, and obviously I don't know if you saw the scenes when they were leaving the pitch and stuff. Wilder seems to create this siege mentality, but I think at the moment it's working against them.
Yeah, I feel like they've had more fines and charges and FA charges against them than they have goals, to be honest, and they've scored, because it's just, I think they really need to cool their heads and focus on what matters, and maybe that's what's been maybe distracting them. I obviously don't know, but every single time they're the conversation at the minute, but for all the wrong reasons. It's not because they've won. Even with their defeats, you can lose gracefully, but it just hasn't been. And it seems the last 4 or 5 games, there's been some really distasteful scenes from either the players or the fans or Wilder himself, as we saw at Plymouth. And I just think that takes away everything. And I've seen from social media, it's not. I think a lot of people are hedging against them now, and it's not really what you want to create. Definitely not for me, and I think a lot of football fans don't really want it either. So, yeah, I think you definitely don't want to be the Sheffield United or the Sunderlands of the world right now, because they're just kind of treading water, lost that momentum, and how do you pull yourself back up? I don't have the answers, and I don't know whether time will tell, I guess, if they do as well.
Yeah, listen, we will leave it there. As I say, thank you as always. If you've joined us in the comments, thank you, Laura. You've been great. You can come back anytime you wish. If you're going to a game at the weekend, then enjoy that. We will be back on Thursday for a wee bit of a preview ahead of the weekend's action. But yes, enjoy your evening. Thanks for your time.